On the show today, so it's true, Tesla Superchargers are opening up in more places, France and Norway added. Jaguar commit to EVs with their own platform, and a rather tasty Skoda Enyaq Coupe RS version is unveiled. Those stories and more coming up on EV News Briefly, your daily rapid-fire insight into the world of electric cars and how we power them. My name is Martin Lee, and I go through every EV story so you don't have to. Join me later on today on the EV News Daily podcast in full for the whole story on all of today's news. We'll start with a couple of tweets I liked. First one from National Car Charging. Excited to announce the US's highest altitude DC fast charger is now live. Charge up in downtown Leadville, Colorado. How high? 10,152 feet. And I'm dare saying after you've climbed all that altitude in an EV, you might well need somewhere to charge. And another tweet from VW saying a great start to the year. In Norway, the BEV platformed cars from VW Group making it into the top 5 of Norway's January numbers. Audi Q4 e-tron was numero uno. Also in the top 5, we had the Skoda Enyaq IV and the VW ID4. Now, let's get to the news, which we talked about yesterday. It was kind of light on details when I recorded this show, but soon after, we had the official announcement from Tesla, people like Björn Newland in Norway making videos as well. They are adding to the Supercharger pilot. Tesla saying we're starting with a select number of sites to review the experience, monitor congestion, and Tesla say assess feedback before expanding. Future sites will only be open to non-Tesla vehicles if there is available capacity, and that could go some way to explaining the sites they've chosen. Now, I had some people in France tell me on social media they'd chosen those sites because they're not near other fast chargers, but I don't think that's true. I think they've probably just chosen them because they're big V3 sites. Now, certain supercharger site layouts may not be suitable for some cars. Tesla say in their instructions, please do not obstruct other cars by parking over the lines if the cable cannot comfortably reach your car. So how do you charge? Well, you download the Tesla app, version 4.2.3 or higher. You create an account, you charge your non-Tesla, click the icon at the top, find the site you're at, but, you ask for location, the little blue dot on the map, that, you're used to seeing that. It'll know where you are, you add a payment method, and you click on Start Charging after you've plugged in your car. Now, somebody says, can I supercharge if I'm visiting the Netherlands, France, or Norway? Tesla say no. The non-Tesla Supercharger pilot is currently limited to EV drivers who live in Netherlands, France, Norway, Germany, Belgium. But I did have a play. And if I open up the Tesla app on my phone, it's not an option. I have an account, it's not there. I changed my postcode, not even my full address. I changed my postcode to a random one in France. So in the top right-hand corner, you can click on your account and your account details. And I changed my contact info to just a random number, 35620. That's how the French standard postcode is. And it worked. And so it thinks I'm in France. Now, I also collected my VPN to a French IP address. I didn't need to do that. So I'm back on my home Wi-Fi and yet it still shows up. So can I start a charge for one of my listeners or viewers? I think I probably could because I can see it in my app. I can charge my non-Tesla. Now, it has me on the south coast where I live in Bournemouth and Poole, but I can scroll across to somewhere in France and click on search this region, which is the little one at the top there. So search this region. And it'll show me, I'll pick a V3 supercharger station near Paris, actually 12 of 16 stalls available. Tells me the price, a bit cheaper if I sign up for membership. It's €12.99, euros, of course, paid monthly. There's idle fees of €1. And then we go, the stalls are all available, 1A to 1D, and it's not focusing, there we go. And I can scroll across to 4A to 4D. So I guess, in theory, it would work. I wouldn't recommend you drive to Europe from the UK with zero state of charge and expect it to work. Don't blame me if it doesn't. But it looks like it would with that kind of hack. It's not really, it's just changing my postcode. So that's obviously what it's based on. So change it to a Dutch or Norwegian or French postcode if it works for you. Great news there. And great news for all EV drivers, by the way. Supercharger stations are generally bigger than the ones that I experience for third parties, generally. I generally see space. Now, that's not to say that I've not seen them full, but it's not like the US around holiday season. Like I don't tend to see queues at supercharging stations. The pricing is cheaper than other networks. and it just works. Peak speed of 150, I think, still in place. So that's most EVs on the road can charge that or slower. I'd love to know how you get on if you're in France or Norway adding these new stations in. Let me know. Leave a comment. You can email hello@evnewsdaily.com. Now, talking of Norway, there was a big test of not 1 or 2 or 5 EVs, but 31 battery electric vehicles. One of the sponsors of this podcast, Jan at emobilitynorway.com, was one of the drivers, one of the 31 drivers. And the point of this test was to compare it to the WLTP range versus real world. The best car of the 31 was actually Chinese. It was the BYD Tang, and it ended with just 11% difference in range from real world to WLTP. The worst was the Skoda Enyaq IV, and that's interesting because it was the two-wheel drive version of that. The four-wheel drive version of the Skoda, looking at the table here, actually did better. Now that shouldn't be the case, really. The two-wheel drive version should be more efficient, so they're going to redo that test. Jan was driving the Neo ES8, 21-inch wheels, 7-seater, so a big vehicle, and that came 5th, by the way, 12.9% difference to its WLTP range. It was very cold. It's Norway in January. They all started at the same place in Oslo with 100% charge. They drove 450 kilometres, and quite a lot of elevation as well, up to 1,060 metres. I'll pop a link to all the details in that if you're interested. Great Norwegian test. I love stuff like this because it was all the cars at the same time, driven by people who know what they're doing. All right, moving on. And now we'll talk about Jaguar Land Rover getting a loan guarantee from the UK government. £500 million of taxpayers' money being used to guarantee the majority of a loan to Jaguar Land Rover. The total loan is £625 million by 12 different commercial banks, but underwritten by the UK taxpayer. And this is to help develop their EV platform. They're going all in on EVs. Look, they have to because everyone's going all in on EVs. Jaguar Land Rover have been laggards. Now, look, I had the I-Pace. I've driven the I-Pace for a month. About 13 months ago, we had it in the driveway for a month. Came straight from Magna, who make it. And the I-Pace is a fabulous vehicle, and it's so good. But that's all they have to sell you, and that's all they'll have to sell you for a while. The new platform comes online in 2025. We got the new details now from the CEO, the JLR CEO, Thierry Bolloré, saying initially they were going to license a technology, find a platform from somebody else, but now they're going to go their own way. It'll be ready 2025, and that is an awfully long way away when people have been getting serious about EVs for a very long time. But it's probably the right thing to do to give them the ultimate flexibility to put all of their vehicles from Jaguar and the Land Rover, the Range Rovers, etc., on an EV platform. Not the easiest thing to do, but that's what will underpin them. It's going to be called Panthera, by the way. The Jaguar Land Rover designer is Jerry McGovern, and the requirement that he set was that the car should look unique as they take the brand more towards Bentley territory. Interesting stuff. All right, let's move on and talk about the launch of the Skoda Enyaq Coupé IV, bringing a more sporty flair, they say, to the car that we've seen. The Enyaq's been around for a while now, but now the Coupé version lops a bit of the back off, and they charge you more for the privilege. Actually, you only lose about 15 litres of boot space, which is incredible, really, because that roofline's quite a lot different. I love the look of this. Maybe not in the colours they were showing off for the press. Fluorescent, kind of yellow colours. Reminded me of Braun GP car in 2009, but either way, it didn't hit the mark for me. But get the black one with the kind of bronze trim and the blacked out windows at the back. That's the spec to go for. Looks amazing. VRS version, or the RS version, is the one on sale now. In the UK at least, and I think in Europe as well. Deliveries in the summer. The other versions go on sale a little bit later for deliveries in August. And it's 0 to 62 miles now, 0 to 100 Ks in 6.5 seconds, 225 brake horsepower on that. And, you know, I think that's probably all the speed you need out of a vehicle like that. If you want something quicker on public roads, I don't know, maybe have a look at yourself and ask why you want something even quicker than that. Right, let's move on and talk about one report. It is just one report we've read between Rivian and Samsung SDI calling off talks to do a joint venture for cells. Now, Samsung will continue to be the supplier of Rivian, the 2170 cells as found in Model 3, Model Y, Lucid Air. The partnership isn't going, but they were going to do their own. It was part of maybe what we read about before the IPO. They were going to do a cell joint venture partnership. That's now not happening, according to this one report. Sources saying that things like needing to inspect Samsung's factory and Rivian not committing to a minimum amount of cells they would buy caused the talks to break down. No confirmation of it. That was an unnamed source as well. So, hey, caution, as always, caution. But on the same day, Samsung did choose that day to also announce they are doing a joint venture with Stellantis and a new joint venture gigafactory in the US for a 23 gigawatt hour factory making cells together with Stellantis. No site yet chosen by the look of it. Now we'll talk about a Tesla hacker on Twitter known as Green the Only, comparing updated code, and something stood out to this person, and that is to do with the seats and the way they move forwards and backwards. Not the lumbar support or anything else, the electric seats. And if you use them too much, they'll put you on the naughty step and give you a timeout. A bit like a toddler who's been, misbehaving. And no one can quite work out why. Now, I could take a guess at the reason. They have a supplier of their seats. They have a couple of suppliers, actually, but I think they're using a new German supplier. And there is speculation that maybe the motors need to cool down a little bit. Well, look, there's no real airflow under seats. And actually, what they're giving you when you look at the actual amount of time you're allowed to use the seats is fine. You can use it. You can move the seat around for 2 minutes in a 5-minute period. If you're doing that more, you probably are one of those kids, because ours does it, that just plays with the seats. So, hey, my advice: you got small children, don't let them play with your seats, because you'll get locked out of them and you get put in a 5-minute timeout, maybe to cool down. We don't know why, but clearly Tesla haven't spent the time doing this unless there was a reason to do it. So they've got the data, maybe warranty claims or something, I don't know. But hey, it's not a big deal, but it made me smile. Also, I don't think a big deal is what is being billed as a recall of 53,822 vehicles. Now, late last year, Tesla introduced rolling stops to their FSD beta pool of drivers. The agency, the NHTSA, got wind of this through reports and had conversations with Tesla about it. Now, rolling stops are fine some places and not in others. Here, stop means stop, but I gather it can mean different things. It's state by state in the US, according to what my listeners have told me. Now, they said that this was not an acceptable feature of the car, that it violates state laws in some areas, that it has to be removed. Now, I think because the agency got involved, it's then classed as an official recall. Or at least when you issue a recall, you have to write letters or notifications to those customers, those drivers. It's not like bits of the car's falling off or it needs new hardware. Tesla will change this with an over-the-air software update. And, I've said it before on the podcast. New listeners haven't heard me say this. Tesla bring this on themselves. They didn't need to do it now. They almost bait officials. Like they almost are anti-establishment on purpose to see what will happen. And then it just causes them grief. They had to sit down with the agency on January the 10th, then January the 19th again. And on the 20th, Tesla agreed, shouldn't have done that, so we'll undo the rolling stops idea. I mean, look, it's not crucial to FSD beta, and actually, it just gives them more paperwork to do, and it creates negative headlines, and it's so easily fixed with a over-the-air update. I'm kind of not sure this should be called an official recall, but that's what this Reuters article says. And that leads me on to this. Some Tesla devotees are so upset that President Biden isn't showing them enough love that they've set up a petition on change.org, and last time I checked it, 33,000 people had signed it. They want the president to recognise what Tesla is doing. Look, if you know about electric cars, you know that Tesla are leading the way. And when they say things like GM's leading the way or Mary Barra, Mary, you did it. You electrified the auto industry. They don't make any cars. Well, they made one Hummer last year. Everything else at GM is off the table. So it's plainly ridiculous. But isn't that one of the reasons why some people like the Tesla brand? The anti-establishment, swimming against the tide, we play by our own rules, not yours mentality and attitude. So I don't know if crying tears about Biden not showing them love and giving them a big warm hug is really needed. Like, just ignore it. Get over it. Tesla are clearly leading the way. Not short of customers and not short of profits either. So, yeah, I'm not sure having a little bellyache and a moan about that gets them anywhere. But either way, I'd ignore it personally, but some people are annoyed about that. I would personally just completely... Like, Biden's going to love Ford and GM, and you got to say the unionized workforces, that's kind of the way of the world, right? And also, lately, Elon Musk has been pretty aggressive and confrontational on his social media towards the current administration. So that relationship is not being patched up on either side, you'd have to say. No one's really taking the high ground, I guess. But anyway, I'd move on. I wouldn't worry about petitions and things. Now, we'll talk about NIO and the ET5 getting its first validation prototypes rolling out of the factory. Very exciting stuff. Following up the ET7, which is already on sale in China. But what's interesting about the ET5, this sedan from NIO, is that by 2025, they want to be in 25 markets, including not only Norway, but the likes of Denmark and Germany and the Netherlands, Sweden as well. This year, those countries. So NIO, one of those Chinese companies, really expanding. And I think lots of people are going to be surprised when they see a car on the roads or even a friend gets it. Like, what's this? It's a NIO. And they've never heard of that. Yeah, it's Chinese. Watch out. The Chinese cars are coming. Don't say I didn't tell you. But also, the value bit of Renault is doing pretty well. Dacia and the all-EV Spring, which is a very small EV. And it's a very cheap one as well. It can be 12 or 13,000 euros, depending on what country, like France, with big incentives. And that's great for getting around town and for younger drivers as well. The Dacia Spring had a great year last year, went on sale in March, has done over 27,870 units, and they have 46,000 on order. Going really well at Dacia. Just goes to show, make a nice, cheap, affordable city EV. And people will buy it. Now, at Ford, the CEO Jim Farley says that they've got big hopes for their Ford Pro bit of their business, with $45 billion in revenue by 2025. They want to make 150,000 electric transits from 2023 onwards. And part of that commercial offering is Ford Pro, helping businesses charge with fleets and depots and cloud-based routing so they can do the best possible route and use the least amount of energy. And all those features, even though over-the-air updates, shouldn't they be free, can be charged for, and they want to make it a really big business line between now and the middle of the decade. Super interesting. Now, Koenigsegg always do weird and very, very wonderful things with engineering. And now they've unveiled their new electric motor. There'll be 3 of them on the Gamera and a 600 horsepower motor. But these electric motors, they design them themselves from scratch. They are about 63 pounds in weight, which is ridiculously lightweight, and yet they create 335 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque per motor, 3 of them on the car, and they'll do all the heavy lifting, if you like, at low-end speeds. And then when you get to the very high-end speed, that's when combustion takes over, and this car will top out at something like 245 miles an hour, which is where the motors won't be doing as much of the hard work, and the peak power can only last for 20 seconds anyway. But that's insane engineering. This is such a lightweight, compact motor. All designed by them. I'm sure that technology will be licensed elsewhere, and it won't just be hypercars from Koenigsegg using that. Right, final, not really a story, but certainly something that I would encourage you to go and watch, and that is my friends over at the TFL channel, the Fast Lane Truck channel. Finally got their hands on a Rivian. Took a while to get an R1T. They weren't lucky at the beginning, and they finally got one. And their latest video is awesome. They tow about 8,000 pounds of an old Ford 100 truck on a trailer. It's the standard test they've been doing for the last 10 years up the Rocky Mountains. It's the route they take with all of their trucks Did it with the Rivian, towing a huge amount of weight as well. And go and watch it to see how elevation and towing affect an EV like the Rivian. And some of the consumption figures are hilarious. Yes, they were charging it as well because they wouldn't have made it otherwise. But really interesting that they were following like the camera car, support car was a Ram TRX truck. And like the Rivian out-accelerated it whilst also towing 8,000 pounds. Insane EV power. But, towing and elevation, not EV's best friend. So go and watch that. And also watch it because it's beautiful. And they've done an amazing job making that. It's like a telly show. How do they do it? It's so good. It's so good. Right. That is your podcast for today, my friends. Hopefully you enjoyed it. You can check out my podcast channel, EV News Daily, where we go into loads of detail about all the big EV stories around. I'd encourage you to subscribe to that in your podcast app if you would like to do so. Just search EV News Daily. There's a 5-minute version as well for those that are in a hurry called EV News Briefly. Get it in the same feed, so you haven't got to subscribe to 2 different things. And for those that want to support this channel on our Patreon, you absolutely can do patreon.com/EV News Daily. $5 or $10 or maybe more, you can support the show, get it on the air every single day. You don't have to. This will always be free. But thank you to those that do, and check it out. I will see you on the audio version for a longer chat about today's news. And on the video version, I'll see you tomorrow.